Hey guys, Ken Stretz, Stretz Tactical. This video is for my New York law enforcement viewers out there, police officer, peace officer, federal agent, whatever your deal is. Just trying to spread the word, if you guys didn't know already, that you can purchase, possess, manufacture, whatever, short barrel rifles, shotguns, and suppressors here in New York. Quick rundown of kind of how I did things. Started with the short-barreled rifles and shotgun, and then got into suppressors from there. You can go to a dealer. You can tell them, hey, order whatever I want, and then they'll place the order. Either maybe they'll have it in stock, but there's not too many Class 3 dealers here in New York, so probably not. So they're gonna have to order it. One of the issues one of my brothers ran into, he lives in upstate New York, not too many guys up that way that have the Class 3s. I mean, there's not too many in the state as it is. They didn't know that individual officers can own these items. So he ran into a wall with that. They did their research. We tried to show, here's the exemptions. This is what I'm doing as his brother. And it was basically a no-go with those. He dealt with a couple of different guys. There's a guy out in Long Island that does it. He's handling my suppressors. He's super busy. Like when I did the suppressors, might as well just touch on that now. So if you decide to go through a dealer, he's really busy. Does movie gun rentals, law enforcement contracts for body armor and uniforms and gun demos and you name it. Told me to go to silencershop.com. I ordered online, selected him in the drop-down boxes as a dealer. They get shipped to him. He gets the serial numbers, and once he gets the serial numbers, he starts the Form 4 paperwork. In the meantime, the Silencer Shop, which is a distributor, I guess, or just another dealer, not sure their exact title, they start something called a Form 3 that gets sent to the ATF. Takes about 3 or 4 weeks to approve. Sent back to them. They ship it out. That stuff actually got held up for a month or two at Silencer Shop, it turns out, because I'm like, why isn't my stuff getting shipped? Called them, oh, we batch ship. I'm in New York. How many guys are buying suppressors and having them shipped to New York, right? It's not a new thing. Law enforcement officers, as individuals, have been buying and manufacturing SBRs and suppressors for years, even prior to this 41F thing. All you needed back then, from the way I understand it, was a letter from any supervisor on your job saying, the Lautenberg stuff, basically. You don't have any domestic violence convictions, you don't have any orders of protection, you're currently an active law enforcement officer, whatever. Submit that with your paperwork, get your Clio signature, and you're good to go. Just do the paper like normal. Obviously those people knew Clios and had the paperwork signed and whatever. That was back before the 41F ruling, where you needed a Clio signature, which they didn't have to give you. ATF changed that with 41F. So now it's a Clio notification. Clio, again, if you guys don't know, Chief Law Enforcement Officer. They used to have to sign off on one of the copies of the forms. Now it's just a notification. Don't have to take any action unless you know a reason this person shouldn't have these items. A Clio is a couple of examples, and just kind of FYI, I'm not an NFA expert. I'm a novice at this. I have 3 short-barreled weapons, and I got a couple of suppressors, that are in the pipeline. So Clio could be a town police chief, city police commissioner, county sheriff, county police commissioner, superintendent of the state police. I believe it's county court and state court judge. Not sure about local court and federal court judges. They could be. Don't know. Not an expert on that. I'm just trying to give you guys a reference, a starting point to, and kind of tell you my journey. So, you would get the Clio signature and all that, mail in your paperwork with your $200 and your photos and fingerprints, and be good to go. Now you don't need the Clio signature. Like I said, it's just a notification. So for me, for the suppressors, I buy them online, Silencer Shop, and that's what my dealer told me to do, because he didn't keep things in stock. You might find a guy that has some stuff in stock, especially now with 41F and more law enforcement officers finding out about this. But currently, probably not a lot of guys keeping stuff in stock. So order it online, follow the order online. They do the Form 3, it gets approved. They held it up waiting for a batch shipment because that's what they do at Silencer Shop. Fortunately, I caught it after a month or two, so it didn't go for months and months and months, but still delayed the process, which was already probably going to be a year wait. They eventually shipped it out. At some point, I had to follow up a couple times with my dealer because he's a busy guy. He sent me a packet. It came in a big envelope like this, and it had, you know, instruction sheets and the Form 4s. So Form 3 from the distributor or dealer to dealer to transfer the item to your local guy, which has got to be in your state. You can't go to, you know, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. It's got to be a New York Class 3 dealer. So Form 3 to go to them. They do a Form 4 to transfer it to you. My guy is out in Long Island. I'm up in Westchester. Filled out all the paperwork. Sent it to me. You know, he signed what he had to sign. He put the Clio information in for me. You know, the suppressor information, 2 sets of everything because I got 2 cans. I signed everything. I got 2x2 passport size photos, 3 for each can, because there's 3 copies of your forms, Form 4, Form 1. Form 1 is to manufacture items such as short barrel rifles. I'll get to that in a minute. Had to get fingerprints, 2 sets of fingerprints. They're FBI applicant, the blue applicant cards. Got fingerprinted. You could go to your job, you can go to another job, maybe where you live. I went to a private company that does it. Just don't have to bother anyone at work. You don't have to hear nothing if they're, you know, they don't want to be bothered. And if you're worried about people doing it right or something, you know, they were like college kids who did it for me. The law doesn't say it's got to be a law enforcement officer or whatever. This company was fine. I mean, I guess you can have your, you know, 6-year-old with an ink pad in your house. And I'm joking. I don't know if that's smart, and I don't know, you know, who can and who can't, and whatever. I'm just telling you what I did. I paid a company. I was in White Plains, New York. It was like, I don't know, $40 or something. They do 2 sets, so 2 cards basically, and then there's, you know, $10–15 charge for each additional set of 2. So I did for my suppressors, you know, 4 cards. So it cost me whatever it was, $50–60. And then it cost a lot more for the short barrel rifles because I did 4 in one shot. So for the suppressors, again, sent me the paperwork. I just had to add my pictures, get my fingerprints done. Had to write a letter to the chief law enforcement officer where I lived. Didn't have to, but you got to give his copy when you do the Form 1s and Form 4s. There's a copy for the ATF, copy of the ATF that gets returned to you. Basically, it has your stamp on it. Once your paperwork gets approved, you get what's called a tax stamp. This is it right here on one of my Form 1s. It's just a stamp on it, like a postage stamp, a little bit bigger. And instead of 49 cents or forever or whatever, it says $200 because that's what it costs. So you get that back. So fingerprints. Oh, I'm sorry. I realized where I was at now. So a copy of the ATF. Copy of the ATF that gets returned to you with your stamp on it, and a copy for the Clio, Chief Law Enforcement Officer. And basically, it's got the, you know, agency or department name and title of the official, and the address. And then you can see there's a spot for your pictures. So each form, the ATF copy 2 to be returned to registrant, and then the Clio one gets all the same information pretty much. It's like a 4473, like when you go to buy a regular gun in the store. So each one, all the gun information, your pedigree information, or your suppressor information. I know I said gun, but suppressor information for Form 4, firearm information for Form 1. 2 sets of fingerprints each, a photo on each of the copies. ATF copy would have one of these. The ATF copy that we return you with your tax stamp has a photo on it. and then the copy to go to your Clio has your photo on it as well. So if you're going to manufacture, so I talked a little bit about the suppressors. Now if you're going to manufacture, right, and if you're going to purchase an SBR, it would be the same process as I mentioned for the suppressor. You know, either see if the guy can order it from his distributor, or see if he's got something in stock, or find it online and pay and transfer it to him. Or you can take an existing firearm like this. This was a SIG MPX pistol, and basically all I did was add a stock to it. So you take an existing firearm. So I have that one, or I had a standard 18.5-inch barrel Mossberg 590. I know you're going to say, like, why does he have this rail and rear sight and just a bead? I sent the gun out to Van Comp when it was an 18.5-inch barrel gun. It's obviously going to go back to them now to get the barrel treatment, porting in the front sight again. I had a Bravo Company manufacturing BCM M4 pistol. It's an AR-15 pistol. You can see the pistol buffer tube. There's no slots or grooves for the stock to adjust. It's also a little fatter. You wouldn't be able to fit a stock on here if you tried. And then a Zenith Z5K, basically an MP5K semi-auto copy that I started. So this was a pistol. So 3 pistols and a standard 18.5-inch barrel shotgun. For the Form 1s, you go online to the ATF website. It's a 5320.1, and it's PDF or whatever. I'm not a computer guy. Comes up on a screen, fill everything out. You can be an individual, a trust or legal entity, or a government entity. Obviously, you're not going to be a government entity, so you're probably going to be an individual unless you do a trust. I don't know much about trusts because I didn't go that route, but the way I understand the trust is you may have to get a lawyer and everything to set up a trust. I'm not sure. I've heard stuff about that, so I can't talk a lot about trust, but basically it's a legal, you know, group of individuals. So obviously in New York it would have to all be law enforcement officers who can possess the same gun. You know, you might be the overall, you know, person who owns them, but you can allow, let's say you got brothers and sisters and fathers and whatever, they're law enforcement, or you're in a free state outside of New York, they could come over to the house, grab, you know, whatever NFA item that's on the trust that they're on, take it, and they're free to go, you know, anywhere with it that you can go with it. I didn't do that. I did it as an individual. So, you know, I just checked it individual. Type of application, tax paid. You just check box or whatever, and that's actually where, when it gets approved, you see the little green thing here, the stamp. That's where that comes back. It's got your serial number on it, the date it's approved, and the examiner's initials. All your pedigree information, description of firearm, name and address of original manufacturer. So for the MPX, Sig Sauer Incorporated, Exeter, New Hampshire, USA. Type of firearm to be made, short barrel rifle. Case of the shotgun, short barrel shotgun. Caliber. This created a problem for me with the SIG MPX. You won't be able to see it on a camera here. I'm just filming on an iPad. It's starting to get dark too. It says multi-dash caliber, or multi-dash cal to be exact. It is a 9mm. It's how the gun came. The platform is set up to eventually they'll sell 40 cal and 57 SIG barrels and whatnot. You can convert the gun to those different calibers. So it is set up for multi-caliber, but I got it 9mm. So the paperwork actually got kicked back, and it got mailed back to me. Even though I talked to the guy, the examiner, on the phone, he didn't mention, because they're super busy, and some of these forms got approved, you know, days and weeks apart of other forms, even though they're all in the same package submitted together. So he sent it back. I didn't get it right away because I moved, which created another problem. The mail forwarding, it took like a week or two to get it. So he sent this form here, like it says final notice on it from the ATF. It's basically when they have a problem with your paperwork. Caliber can't be listed as multi. Specified caliber to be used, and then it's got the examiner's name, email address. If you got any questions, this phone number. You got to return it in 30 days of the date that it's not the date you receive it, but the date it's dated. So, you know, they dated it. They didn't mail it for a day or two. It takes a day or two to get here, and if you got weekends or holidays, and then, you know, I basically overnighted it. I corrected it, drew a line through it, initial it, and they tell you that that's fine. So draw a line through multi-cal, write in 9mm, initial, date, and overnight. It cost me $25 to get it overnighted, but speed up the process. This whole thing took, I mean, the date of my application is July 22nd. When you submit your applications, you can go online, give me your serial number, and you can follow up and see how far in the process you are. Usually they'll say pending, and then eventually they'll say approved. So July 22nd, I signed it, I mailed it out the same day. It was pending as of July 29th. This is 2016. Got the paperwork, took a couple of weeks to get the paperwork that was rejected. I signed it on 5/16 and sent it out that day, overnight. On 5/18 it was approved. 5/22 it was put in the mail. 5/25 I had it. So you're talking August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. 10 months, you know, for them to you know, for it to get approved. Now the 41F thing kind of inundated them with applications, because you don't need the Clio signature anymore. It's just a Clio notification. So a chief law enforcement officer doesn't have to, you know, he could be mad that you shouldn't have this, doesn't want to sign it, not for him to sign it anymore. All he has to do is, if he's got a reason why you can't have it, call up and say, oh, you can't have it. And if it's not a good enough reason, then you're going to have it. So they got inundated with stuff. The other hiccup I ran into was that my ID card doesn't have, my police ID doesn't have a expiration date on it. So they needed verification of employment. So basically I had to get a letter from my police chief or his designee. The way they say it is, you know, if a secretary in your agency will write you a letter saying you work here, good to go. She's the designee. You know, the police chief may not want to give you one. And I asked them about that. Well, what happens? You know, I submitted my paperwork. The guy gives me a call 10 months later. Hey, you know, your ID card doesn't have an expiration date, so we need this letter. If you had an expiration date, we wouldn't. So, you know, what happens if it doesn't? Well, we're not going to let you lose your money. We'll call and we'll tell him he's got to give you a letter, and kind of alluded to the fact that if I didn't get the letter, that maybe the phone call would suffice. I mean, he didn't say that, but I was kind of getting that impression. I might be totally wrong. Something to think about if you got an expiration date and may not be able to get a letter from someone, going through all of this process. And you know, I paid for fingerprints instead of having somebody on my job do it, and dealing with that. You know, I had the guns. I bought, you know, stock for the MPX was $250 with a discount. You know, the $200 tax per gun, which basically, when you're done with your paperwork, and you're ready to submit it, you have that photograph on each copy for each gun. So I did 3 guns, or each suppressor. I did 2 suppressors. So photographs, 2x2 passport size. You got to send the Clio copy to your Clio. And what I did with that was to kind of explain what's going on. It was I wrote this letter to my local Clio. Probably should have had it out for you guys. Here we go. I used the SBR one here, but it's the same for the suppressor. Dear Chief, I'm writing to inform you, per the National Firearms Act, NFA, and using my exemption as a police officer here in New York, that I am legally submitting an application with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to manufacture 3 short barrel rifles and 1 short barrel shotgun from existing firearms that I legally own. I have enclosed a copy of each ATF Form 1, 5320.1, that I have submitted to the ATF for each firearm per the ATF NFA regulations. No action on your part is required, as explained at the top of page 2 of each enclosed Form 1. This is a notification only to the Clio or Chief Law Enforcement Officer where I reside. I have enclosed a copy of my police ID as well as a copy of the New York State penal law exemption to the prohibition of the possession of short barrel rifles and shotguns for your review. While I am not the first police officer or peace officer to take advantage of this exemption and manufacture or purchase short barrel rifles, shotguns, or even suppressors, it is probably not something that comes across your desk often. Should you require any information, you can reach me at this number. You can also contact the ATF's NFA branch at this number, and I provided the numbers. And again, with the suppressors, I just changed, short barrel rifle to suppressor. So that's pretty much it. You fill out the forms. You have your firearms, right? Or you either, if you're going to do it yourself, you buy the guns, full-size gun, a carbine, or you buy a pistol version, or you buy a regular shotgun, and you manufacture. You fill out the Form 1, what is it again? Form 1 is a 5320.1, application to make and register a firearm. You get it right on the ATF website. Fill everything in. Make sure you do your research. Go online. You can go to manufacturer's website. So SIG MPX, you need to find out the barrel length and the overall length once you attach the stock. So you can go to any manufacturer's website and get the dimensions on that. Remember, no multi-cal. And if your police ID or peace officer ID, because police officer, peace officer, federal agent, doesn't matter. If your ID card doesn't have an expiration date, you're going to need a letter stating you're in good standing with your agency and still currently employed, blah, blah, blah. To submit that way there's no hiccups. Also, if you move, call the ATF NFA branch, make sure they put something in there, write a letter, get an email address, do something, because once I fixed the errors, the multi-cal error on my MPX Form 1 and sent it in, boom, it came right back. And I was wondering, and I even emailed my examiner and said, dude, where's the other 3? Oh, each one gets mailed out individually. They don't put them all, even though I did it at the same time, they don't get mailed out at the same time. And they're approved on different dates. Some are the 10th, some were the 12th, this was the 18th, and then it took days to mail them out to me. So once you have your your approved forms back, it'll have that stamp. That's your tax stamp, your $200 stamp. Oh, when you submit that paperwork and you submit the letter to Clio, copy of the penal law, copy of your ID, copy of the penal law exemption, you do copies of those as well to put in with your packets to the ATF, so your examiner can go, okay, photocopy of the front of the penal law, current year's penal law, copy of the section of criminal possession of a weapon as defined, short barrel rifle, suppressor, whatever, copy of the exemptions. I believe it's 265.20 off the top of my head, I might be wrong. The exemptions for police officer, peace officer, federal agent, all that stuff, so the examiner can see it. You do one for the police chief, but you do one for yourself, copy your ID card. And again, if there's no expiration date on your ID card, you'll need a letter from your job, from your police chief or designee, that you're still employed there. So you also need, like I was saying, a 2x2 photo on each. Basically, there's 3 pieces of paper times 3. ATF copy, so you get the top sheet. That's all your pedigree information. That your tax stamp will come back. Actually, it's one ATF copy. ATF copy to be returned to you. That'll have the stamp on it. The second page has your Clio information at the top. Basically, your usual 4473 questions. I don't use drugs. I wasn't disarmed or discharged or whatever. Your passport photo goes there. You sign at the bottom, date it, all of that, and then this last part. I don't know what this last part's for, but I didn't need to do that, so that was not applicable. And the ATF copy ATF copy 2, that's what gets returned to you with your stamp on it. You submit a $200 check or money order with your prints, with your forms, whether Form 1 that you're manufacturing, Form 4 that you got from a dealer, prints, 2 blue cards, FBI cards, applicant cards per. You send your Clio form off to the Clio copy of the form off to the Clio with all that information described earlier. Prints, photos, check for $200 per item, mail the stuff back in. I sent it registered return receipt so I can track it, make sure someone got it, all that. Mail it back in, and you wait 10 months or longer. Maybe down the road it'll slow down and you'll get it sooner, but if guys in New York really start getting hot on the stuff and start putting in applications, that might slow it down too. So that's pretty much it. Now once you got that stuff, you have to get your guns engraved with your name, first and last name, and your city and state. First, last name, city and state. Then once it's engraved, you can add a stock to it, or if you had like a full-size AR, change the barrel or change the upper to a shorter upper. All right, but you got to get it engraved. You got to get your tax stamp back first. You got to get it engraved before you, as I understand it, even possess those items. You can't possess those items, you know, stock or short barrel or whatever, without your forms approved. Something to think about too, like for this Mossberg, it was an 18 and a half inch barrel gun. Needed to buy the short barrel. If people had it in stock, they didn't want to ship it here. Cheaper and Dirt had the best price. My buddies out at Van Comp out in Arizona are like, yeah, go to Cheaper and Dirt, they get the best price, and they did. Fortunately, I was going out to Arizona for a vacation, and I said, oh, I'll send it to the resort out there. And they charged me a fee for accepting it, and then it was too heavy to put in luggage without paying an astronomical fee, so I shipped it back. So the fee that they charged me at the hotel to receive it, and shipping to send it back, that caused the fee. The engraving cost the fee. I sent it out to Ident Services, Ident Marking Services in Texas, I believe it is. And that was $60 per gun, $55 for AR-15s. And then the shipping, they send it down there. I sent 4 receivers, tried to strip the guns down to as light as possible, but insured them for what the receivers are worth. And MPX isn't cheap. My Zenith Z5K pistol, that wasn't cheap. BCM, you know, probably the cheaper of them all, and then the Mossberg's the cheapest. But figured that all out, insured it was like $100 with shipping, 2-day air. So you think about the cost of all of this, $200 per gun, cost to get printed if you don't go to your agency or agency where you live or whatever, to print you. Cost, I went to CVS, had them do the passport photos, cut them and submit them. Cost to get the guns engraved. That's another thing, is the engraving. Where do you do it and all that? I asked a few people, and I heard it's got to be conspicuously marked. Ident Marking Services offers to do it inside, among other places, like more conspicuously, they offer to do it inside the trigger guard. And all these guns are clear and safe. It's probably hard to see anything, but this is locked back, it's on safe, whatever. They offered to put it inside the trigger guard. I checked with the ATF. ATF said you can put it anywhere. You can put it on the barrel if you want, but obviously you change barrels, you're going to have to get it re-engraved, and that wouldn't be the smartest. So some people say it's got to be conspicuous. You know, I went with inside the trigger guard for my MPX and for my AR-15. I've never heard of anyone getting in trouble for having it marked in the wrong place, but right from the ATF's mouth, you can put it inside the trigger guard. With the Z5K, it's inside here where if this was a full-size MP5, where the stock would retract, and then on my Mossberg, it's right down here to the left of the serial number. And that's it, guys. Hopefully I covered everything you need to know. I had to do this video a second time because the battery or the memory got full. I know it's a little long, or it looks almost a half an hour now, but I want to get the information out to you guys and not forget anything, and throw in the hiccups I had about, you know, the ID card moving and the mail not getting forwarded, and putting multi-cal on there, and making sure you look up the overall length and all that stuff, and kind of cover everything. And you know, 10 months wait and whatever. So it's a lot of work, a lot of information I had to kind of dig up on my own. Special thanks to my buddy Carl from ISS Weapons out in LA. Very helpful with all my stupid questions. Thank you to him. And my buddy Mike from Stag Arms. Both tremendous wealth of knowledge and information on the NFA stuff. So thanks for watching. I know it's a little bit long. Stay safe. We'll see you on the range.